Hey guys, welcome back to another windy video. My name's Dylan. On this channel, I create skateboard tutorials, product reviews, and all the behind the scenes of our non-profit skateboarding organization here in Kansas City. Today, we're back on the mini ramp because we are gonna learn the Fakey tail stall backside revert. It's a fun one, check it out. Hey, pro tip for any of you mini ramp owners out there. For Christmas, I got a leaf blower and it takes way less time for me to clean off the ramp. If you don't have one, I highly recommend it. But in today's video, we're gonna learn how to do a Fakey tail stall backside revert. And what is a Fakey tail revert? It's when you go up the ramp Fakey, and as you approach the coping, you press down on your back foot so that your tail smashes down on the coping. You're gonna rotate your hips, your shoulders, backside 180 degrees. You're gonna revert on the way back in, and you're gonna go back down the ramp Fakey. This is a beginner mini ramp trick, but there's a few things you wanna learn how to do first. And the first one, you wanna make sure you know how to drop in. Second, you wanna make sure you know how to do a rock to Fakey on the mini ramp. If you don't know how to rock to Fakey on the mini ramp, it's gonna be a lot harder for you to have speed to come back and to get in that tail stall with your feet already set up, rock to Fakey. After you learn the rock to Fakey, you wanna make sure you know how to do a Fakey tail stall. So go up the ramp Fakey, press down, and then go back in regular. And then the last thing I would recommend you know how to do, it's kind of an interesting, weird looking thing, but you're gonna learn how to do a drop in backside 180 on flat ground. And when you do that, all you're gonna do is you're gonna drop in, but as you drop in, you're gonna scoop with your back foot, throw your hips and your shoulders, and do a backside 180. Before you start trying this trick, you need to know where to put your feet, and I put my feet right here. My front foot goes directly over the front bolts, and my back foot goes over the tail with my toes hanging off on the toe side of the board, and that's what helped me scoop backside 180 degrees to revert back into the ramp and to roll away Fakey. Okay, so to do a Fakey tail stall revert, you're gonna make sure that you drop in, rock to Fakey the other side of the ramp with your feet already set up where they need to be to get into tail stall and to do that 180. As you approach the ramp, make sure to bend your knees and make sure that you have enough speed so that you can stall on top of the ramp. For you to gain confidence to do this trick, you wanna make sure that you're able to at least get on top of the ramp to have a little more time before you revert 180 degrees back in. If you're going too slow, it's gonna be really hard for you to do the 180 if you're not fully locked into that tail stall. As you approach the ramp Fakey, as soon as you get up to the top of the coping, make sure to press down on that back foot so that your tail smashes all the way down up against the coping. And at the exact same time, you're gonna start turning your shoulders and your hips backside to do a 180 degree turn. You're gonna do a back 180. So as soon as you start smashing in, if you just start looking over your back shoulder, your shoulders will follow, your hips, your knees, and then your feet. So as soon as you go up, start making sure that your shoulders are already turning. If you're having trouble with this, practice it on flat ground first. Get in that drop-in position, wind up, and then throw your shoulders to do that revert backside on flat ground. You're gonna wait to do the 180 back into the ramp until you're at the peak of your momentum at the top of the quarter pipe. And you'll feel it because you'll go up to the quarter pipe, stall, and you'll have just about what feels like half a second. You'll go up and you'll stall, and then your momentum will start carrying you back in. So what you wanna do is you wanna go up and stall, and before that momentum goes back in, you wanna shift your shoulders, your hips, your knees, and your feet, so that when that momentum goes back in, the board has already been put into motion to do that backside 180 degree turn. One of the biggest mistakes I see with this trick is that people will be in the back seat when they go in. It means they're leaned a little bit too far on their nose, and so when they try to ride back in Fakey, they end up slipping out and hitting their knee or their hip on the way back into the ramp. And so that's why I highly encourage you, bend your knees and really focus on keeping your head centered directly over your board. Because if your head is centered over your board, you should be centered on the way back in. It also helps when you do this trick to keep your feet super wide. That way you can kind of navigate on both ends. If you have your feet too far in the middle or too far on one side of the board, I guarantee you're gonna slip out on that side. So make sure that you go up, press down on that tail, make sure your shoulders and your hips are already in motion to do that backside 180 turn. Make sure to keep your knees and your feet wide as you go back in. Keep your knees bent. And after you do that 180 degree turn, you'll feel the momentum just send you back in Fakey, and that's when you will bend your knees and ride away. Here are a few tricks and tips that'll help you learn this trick a little bit faster and to help get the motion to do this trick. And the first thing, you can go up the ramp and do a Fakey pivot on the ramp and go back in Fakey. Essentially, it's a half cab on the ramp. But go up, the ramp fakie, do that backside 180-degree revert on the ramp, bend your knees and go back in. It's not gonna feel exactly the same, but you'll get the motion of going up the ramp fakie, doing the 180, and going back down the ramp fakie as well. The second thing that you can do, think back to the beginning of this video where I had you drop in and do the backside 180 just on flat. Another way that you can help learn this trick is you can continue to do it below coping. So go to the bottom of the ramp where there's a little bit of transition there, set up your board and drop in, hang your back toes off so you can keep that board there, put your front foot on, and at the same time wind up your shoulders and your hips, do that backside 180, and revert back in so you roll away fakie. This will help you get the motion of how to do a fakie tail stall backside revert. And the third thing is you've just got to commit. I know it's a pretty scary trick to do, but once you commit, it actually is easier to land the trick than it is to bail the trick. So really just go up and try it a bunch of times, bend your knees, stay centered over your board, and make sure to actually do the back 180. Don't get caught up by being scared and kind of half-footing it. Do the full rotation, do the 180, and right away fakie. This is one of those tricks that is super fun, and once you learn it on smaller stuff, doing it on bigger stuff is not hard at all. Hey, well, I hope this video helped you learn fakie tail stall reverts. It's a super fun trick, and then once you learn it, it's easy to incorporate it into other tricks as well. So once you start learning it really, really well, start learning backside tail slides and then do that backside revert out of it.
Hey guys, welcome back to another video. I haven't done a trick tip in a while, but I had some people asking for it in one of our polls. So today I'm going to show you the easiest way to do a backside axle stall as well as a backside 50-50. Let's get it. And if you already know how to do an axle stall or a backside 50-50, still watch this video. If there's something you think I left out, make sure to comment that down below. An axle stall is a beginner mini ramp trick. However, it is one of the most important things to learn because as you learn it, you start to unlock a lot more other tricks. So what is an axle stall? It's when you go up the ramp backside, your back truck lands on the coping, and then you also set your front truck down on the coping as well. The difference between an axle stall and a 50-50, a stall is when you go up and you simply stall on the ramp, you don't move at all, you don't go forward, you don't go backwards, you literally just stall there and then go back in. Whereas a 50-50 is when you go up the ramp, you put both trucks down and you're gonna grind all the way across the coping and then back in. But before you learn either of these tricks, there are three things you wanna make sure you know how to do first. And the first one is a backside slash grind. The second thing, you wanna make sure you have enough speed, and the easiest way to do that is when you know how to drop in. And lastly, to learn how to go up and stall, especially backside, it's super simple if you already know how to do a backside rock and roll. If you don't know how to do that, I've got a link right up here to a video where you can have me teach you how to do a rock and roll. So to do this trick, first you want to know where to put your feet, and I put my front foot directly over the bolts, and then my back foot goes right here, kind of in the pocket, and I put a lot of the pressure on my back foot on my heel. So you can see my heel's kind of hanging off. That's where most of the pressure is. So when you do this trick, there's two different ways that you can do it. When I first learned how to do it, it looks like this. And so all of my pressure is on my heels going this way. But this isn't really the easiest way to do it. You can definitely learn it. This is what we call a heel lock-in. So when your heels are locked in on the heel side, this is one way you can 50-50. The easiest way to do an axle stall or a backside 50-50 isn't actually heel side, but it looks like this. And this is what we call the cross lock. So you can see the front truck is pushed all the way over here to where the wheel is connecting with the coping, and then the back truck is doing the same, but it's on the opposite wheel. This way, it's a lot more easier to balance and lock in. There's a point where you lock in. Whereas heel side, if you put all your pressure here and you slip out, you go down. This is a lot easier way to be set up to grind across the coping and to go back in. Well, I'm gonna share with you all the steps of how to do a backside axle stall because it's pretty much the same thing as a 50-50, but the 50-50 you go a little bit faster, you have some more speed, and that's what carries you as you grind through the coping. So when you drop in to do a backside axle stall, you wanna make sure that you have enough speed. And as you approach the axle stall, you wanna make sure that your knees are bent. You want to make sure that you have that pressure on that back heel, just like I was talking about, and you're going to approach the coping at a little bit of an angle. If you go straight up, it's going to be harder for you to lock in your back truck and your front truck. What will more than likely happen is that more of your body weight will go up on the deck, and so instead of you doing an axle stall, you'll probably land in a feeble stall. We don't want to do that. We want both trucks on the coping. As you approach the coping, make sure to lean into the ramp so that you don't ride off the coping. One of the things I see a lot with axle stalls or 50/50s is that people will have so much speed and there'll be so much on the deck that they'll start grinding, but they actually end up riding off of the coping and onto the deck. When you're leaned in, you make sure that you have that momentum built up so that you can go back into the ramp when you're done grinding. So as you approach the coping, make sure to lift your front truck up by putting pressure on your back foot on that heel. And when you feel your back truck lock in, press down on that heel. To get that cross lock, you want to make sure that you press down on the heel and you'll feel the wheel connect with the coping. As soon as that happens, point your front foot so that the front truck lands on the coping in that cross lock. From here, you're already in the trick. All you need to know how to do is to turn and to go back in. If you know how to do a rock and roll that's all the way up on the deck, or if you've ever dropped in before, you're going to know what to do from here. So put pressure on your back heel to lift up your front truck. Bend your knees and look where you're wanting to go. Remember, wherever your head is looking, your shoulders are going to follow, your hips, your knees, and your feet. And as you go back in, don't feel like you need to turn as hard as a rock and roll because you're not doing a 180-degree turn, you're just going 90 degrees. So turn, lift up, bend those knees, and ride away. So I have a few different tips when you first start learning this trick that could help you in building up confidence and getting the motion down. And the first one is to try it on a bank first. Go to your local skate park, find a bank, even if your trucks don't lock in, get the motion of going up, sitting in 50/50 right there on the pivot point of the bank where the angle connects, and then turn 90 degrees and go back in. Second, if you're scared to go at too much of an angle, try going up, straight up at it, and getting into a feeble first. And when you get in feeble, then you can readjust over into 50/50 and then go back into the ramp. I know it may take a long time and it may not look super cool, but you start getting the motion down. It's baby steps into learning how to do an axle stall. And lastly, when you start doing the backside 50/50, focus on the crosslock, get a little bit more speed, but don't worry about grinding the whole thing first. Start with baby steps. Go at a little more of an angle than you would with the stall. Start with smaller grinds first and just get the motion and the timing down of doing the 50/50. One of the things I see a lot of people do when they first learn it is that they will grind and then they will literally stop, land in a stall, and then go back in. Obviously, the end game is to go up and grind across it and to go back in as quick as possible. But as long as you're getting the motion down of grinding across, stopping, and going back in, it's gonna help you learn these and learn them really, really well. Well, hey, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Learning this trick opens up a whole new realm of tricks for you to learn as a mini ramp skater. It is a beginner trick, but I promise it opens up the doors to those intermediate and advanced tricks. Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to teach you the easiest way to 50/50 to fakie on a mini ramp. And by we, I mean, my friend Tanner is gonna teach you how to do it. It's gonna be super sick. Let's get it. So, how long have you been doing 50/50 to fakies?
About 8 years.
About 8 years. I feel like as long as we've known each other, you've been doing 50/50 to fakies. I think he has a secret that'll help you guys learn them. It's a super fun one. Here's how you do it. So what is a 50/50 to fakie? It's when you go up the ramp, backside, you lock in both trucks on the coping. You're gonna grind across, but instead of going back in regular, which is forward, you're gonna do a 90-degree pivot and you're gonna go back in fakie. So there are 3 things you wanna learn how to do before you do this trick. And the first one is to do a decked rock to fakie. The second trick you need to learn how to do is a
Axle stall.
And the third thing you need to learn how to do is a 50/50 to regular. Okay, so when you start doing this trick, you need to learn first how to put your feet, and your feet go, where do they go?
Like this.
So back foot's gonna be here, kind of in the pocket. Front foot is directly over the bolts, and this helps you come back in fakie.
So to do a 50/50 to fakie, the first thing that I would recommend is you want to try to find a nice wide quarter pipe.
This section of the mini ramp is 12 feet long, and that gives you more than enough room to have speed to grind all the way. Make sure your feet are set up, and that way you really can focus not on going to the end of the ramp, but on going back and fakie. When learning this trick, I would highly recommend dropping in on a quarter pipe that is equal size or a little bit bigger than the quarter pipe you're gonna be doing the trick on. This will give you enough speed so you can get a nice long 50-50 across the coping. And you're gonna go nice and wide so that you can lock into a 50-50 on the coping. And when you do this, you're gonna put all of the pressure on your heel on the back foot, and then your front foot is just going to guide in that cross lock so that you are 50-50ing backside across the coping. And make sure that your shoulders are parallel with the coping. You wanna make sure that you are completely parallel as you're grinding across. And then to go back into the ramp fakie, what you're going to do is you're gonna make sure that your knees are bent, and you're gonna lift up just like a manual. And since you have all that pressure on your heel, on the tail of the board, what you're actually gonna do is scoot that back truck instead of being locked in on the quarter pipe. But when you scoot down and put more pressure on your heel, the wheel is gonna drop down below the coping. At this point, you wanna make sure that your knees are bent, and you're gonna start twisting your hips the opposite way so that they end up perpendicular from the coping. Tanner does a really good job of making sure that his front truck drops below too, and he puts most of his weight on the front truck. When that back truck goes below the coping, you're gonna make sure that you also lift up so that your front truck goes below as well. Make your pivot point on your front foot so all your pressure is gonna go there, and you'll feel how much pressure that you need to do that 90-degree revert. As you start to revert, make sure to bend your knees and ride away. After you get confident with these tricks, you can start doing some different tricks, and you can start doing feeble to fakies, which we actually made a video. If you wanna learn how to do it, you can check it out up here. And then you can also learn pivot to fakies or 5-0 to fakies. We also did a tutorial for that video. Make sure to check it out right up here. When you start learning this trick, one of the things that I think will help you a lot is when you start cross-locking your trucks. And that's when you go on the opposite sides pinched on your wheel, and it kind of looks like this. So you can see we've got this pinched all the way up. That way you can go back in fakie. This one's all the way over, and this is just a nice, safe, and easy way to do 50-50 so that when you go fakie, all you just lift up and go back in. Another thing that really helps is when you go back in, the first thing you do is make sure to twist your hips to go fakie, because when you twist your hips, your knees, your feet, and your shoulders are all gonna follow that exact same motion. When you twist your hips, you're gonna be able to go back in fakie instead of sliding down halfway in a revert or leaning too far back. And the last tip that Tayman thinks helps the most when you're learning how to do this trick is to just do them. So go out there, just do them, have fun. Hey, I hope you guys enjoyed that video of how to do a 50-50 to fakie. We have a bunch of other tutorials if you're trying to learn how to skate a mini ramp for beginners all the way up to advanced skaters. But since we did have Tanner here with us, we also caught a session on the ramp. We filmed it for Instagram, so it's vertical format, but check those clips out here. Hey guys, my name is Dylan. Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to show you the easiest way to do a nose stall to revert on a mini ramp. This is a fun one. Let's get it. What is a nose stall revert? It's when you go up the ramp, straight up the ramp, but before you get to the coping, what you're going to do is press down on your front foot so that your nose goes directly up onto the coping, just like you're going to drop back in. But instead of dropping back in switch and going down the exact same way, you're going to rotate your shoulders 180 degrees and you're going to do a backside revert back into the quarter pipe and roll away regular. But before you learn how to do a nose stall revert, there's a few other tricks you want to learn how to do first. And the first one is a rock and roll. If you've never done this trick before or you want to learn how to do it, we have a tutorial for that. You can check it out right here. The next trick you wanna know how to do is a nose stall back into fakie. And the third trick you wanna know how to do is a nollie backside 180, even just a little one on the quarter pipe. The next thing you wanna know how to do when you do this trick is where to put your feet. And for this specific trick, I put my feet right here. I put my back foot directly over these back bolts, and I let my toes hang off on the toe side. And then my front foot goes directly on the nose, kind of in this pocket, and I hang off my heel. This is what helps me revert backside 180 degrees when I revert and go regular back into the ramp. To do a nose stall revert, approach the quarter pipe with a little bit less speed than you would to do a rock to fakie. Make sure that your knees are bent and your front foot is on the nose with your back foot directly over the back bolts. As I start going up the quarter pipe, I'm already shifting the weight from both of my feet to mostly on my front foot. As I get closer to the coping, I'm already starting to look over my back shoulder in preparation for the revert back in. When you reach the coping, press down with your front foot and press towards the deck of the ramp. You'll notice at this point your back foot is just hovering on top of the board, so you just want to make sure it stays in position over the back bolts. As you start to drop back in, continue the movement of your head looking over your back shoulder and allow your shoulders and hips to start turning. You'll feel the pivot point on the nose, heel, side pocket of the board. When your back wheels hit the ramp below the coping, shift your weight from your front foot to your back foot. During the revert, your feet may move around a little bit, but if you use the exact same foot position as me, you've already compensated for it. When you feel the revert start to stop spinning, bend your knees and ride away. Two of the biggest problems I see when doing this trick is you don't revert enough or you revert too much. So you wanna make sure that when you do this, as long as you allow your head to guide your shoulders, your hips, and your knees, you shouldn't have a hard time overcompensating or undercompensating for the revert. The good thing is when you look at where you're going and you can move your head in the right direction, even if you are overcompensated or undercompensated, it helps you to step off the board and run out of the trick safely. When doing this trick, there's a few things that I think will help you. And the first thing is you wanna change where your head is going so you can do the 180 when you revert. So when you go up, I'm goofy, so I go up this way to the quarter pipe. For me to go back in, the first thing that's gonna happen is my head is gonna look this way. And as soon as that happens, it helps my shoulders, my hips, my knees, my toes do that 180, and I know where I'm going when I revert back into the ramp. The second thing is when you go back in, you wanna shift the weight distribution from your front foot onto your back foot. So you're gonna do the 180, and as you go back into the ramp, you shift all of your weight from your front foot onto your back foot. It becomes a pivot point, and that's what helps you do the 180, and then make sure that you don't over-rotate at the same time. Welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm gonna be showing you the easiest way to do one of my favorite tricks, and it is the frontside disaster. Let's get it. So what is a frontside disaster? It's when you go up the ramp frontside, you're gonna ollie and do a 180 frontside up in the air, and then you're actually gonna land with the coping on the middle of your board. One truck is gonna be up above onto the deck, the other is gonna be down below. You're gonna bend both your knees, pick up, and go back into the ramp regular. Before you learn how to do this trick, there's a few other tricks you wanna learn how to do first, and the first one is a fakie disaster. If you don't know how to do this trick, we've got the link to the video right up here. I've already taught how to do this. Go check that out, come back, and then learn this trick. The next trick you wanna learn how to do is a frontside rock and roll, and if you don't know how to do that trick either, we also have a link right up here. Make sure to check that video out, come back, and then learn how to do this one. And the last trick you wanna learn how to do is a frontside ollie on transition. It doesn't have to be massive, but you definitely have to know what it feels like to do one. So to do a frontside disaster, first you have to know where to put your feet, and I put my feet right here. So you'll see my front foot goes directly over the bolts. I'm hanging off a little bit on my toe, and then you'll see my back foot is on the tail, but I'm leaving my heel off just a little bit here as well. You can think of this like a frontside shove. You're gonna make sure that your foot does the 180, and if your back foot can help, all your front foot has to do is really guide. So when your foot is set up like this, you're already ready to push that frontside 180, your front foot guides, and you land perfectly in the middle on the coping. If my feet do move, they're already readjusted because of this specific foot placement. So as you approach the quarter pipe, this is where you're gonna start pressing down on your tail, and you're gonna do a very, very small frontside ollie. And if you have your feet set up the way that I have mine set up, the good thing about it is you don't have to ollie and turn your shoulders as much because your feet are gonna push that board 180 degrees so that you'll land in disaster on the ramp. As you start the ollie, look with your head where you're going for the frontside 180. So you're opening up your shoulders as you approach the ramp, but when you reach it, you're gonna throw your shoulders so that your hips, your knees, and your feet, as soon as that ollie lifts up off of the ramp is going to follow. There are two things that can happen on the 180 that'll make this trick difficult. And one, if you don't ollie in 180 enough, a lot of times you'll end up in a frontside Smith stall, which is still pretty cool, but it's not the trick that we're trying to do here. So make sure when you go up, you throw your shoulders enough so that you lock into the disaster perfectly and do a 180-degree rotation when you land into it. So as you go up the ramp, you do the frontside 180. Make sure that your knees are bent to take the impact from the 180 on the top of the ramp. And then from here, you're gonna wanna make sure that your feet are still in a position where they are both directly over the bolts with your front foot a little bit closer to the nose. As you go back into the ramp, you're gonna make sure to apply pressure to the nose of your board and then lift up on your back foot. You wanna make sure that you lift up because if you catch your kingpin, it will be a disaster because you'll hang up and find yourself at the bottom of the ramp. So make sure to lift up on that back foot, apply pressure on the nose, bend your knees, and as soon as you see that back truck go up off the deck, over the coping and back into the ramp, make sure to let that back truck back down, bend your knees, and ride away. This is a super fun trick to do, and once you get down the motion and the timing, you can do it almost on any ramp. The only thing I would say is as you start doing it on bigger ramps, you wanna make sure that you're not stalling on them, because when you go back in, if you're stalled, it's a lot easier for you to catch that back truck on the way in. So make sure to learn this trick, and then there are a bunch of other variations you can do with it as well. One of my favorites is a frontside disaster to Smith stall. But before you learn a bunch of different variations, make sure that you have your frontside disasters down and have them down really, really well. Hey, well, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope that it helps you learn how to do a frontside disaster. Hey guys, welcome back to another video. We're back on the mini ramp. We're gonna learn another mini ramp trick, but today I have my friend Owen here with me, and he's gonna teach you how to do a pivot fakie.
What's up, guys?
Let's get it. A pivot to fakie is when you go up the ramp backside and you have enough speed to lock in your back truck on the coping. Your front truck is going to be up in the air, so you're in a 5-0 position. Instead of dropping in regular, what you're going to do is stop the rotation, lift up, and go back in fakie into the ramp. Okay, when learning this trick, I'm gonna explain how to do it, but I think Owen does it a lot better than me. So while he's doing it, I'll explain how to do the trick. But the first thing is where to put your feet.
I try to put my front foot slightly under the bolts, and I'll keep it a little bit more straight like this. And then my back foot is perpendicular with the board right here on the tail, so that you can put all of your weight right there in the wheel and balance it right in the back pocket on the coping like that.
Okay, before you do this trick, there's 3 other tricks you want to learn how to do first, and the first one is an axle stall. The second trick you need to learn how to do is a backside 5-0 stall or a pivot. It depends on what generation you're from. The last trick you want to know how to do is a feeble to fakie. Learning this trick will help you get the motion for the pivot to fakie, and if you don't know how to do it, there's a card right up here. I've already made this video. Go check it out. Learn how to feeble fakie, come back, and we'll show you how to do this trick. To do a pivot to fakie, you're gonna drop in and gain enough speed so that when you approach the coping, that you can lock in your back truck on the coping. Make sure that your knees are bent and you are centered directly over your board. As you approach the coping, press down on your tail and lift your front truck up to lock into the coping. Allow your hips to turn 90 degrees and put all of the pressure on your heel. When you watch Owen do this trick, you can really see all of his weight is on his heel when he sits on the coping. Having more of your weight on your heel helps you have a pivot point to prepare your shoulders to stop spinning and to give you a place to lock in. When you press down on your heel, the wheel of your board should pinch to the deck and leave you in a place where you can comfortably balance. Also, when you lock in with your heel, you will notice that you need to be leaned in more into the transition of the ramp than on the deck of the ramp. If you get too on top of this trick, you never create a pivot point, and it makes it way more difficult to get back into the ramp. When you are stalled on the coping in the pivot position, you want to make sure that you keep your shoulders perpendicular to the coping. When your shoulders stay perpendicular, it's easier to make sure you aren't spinning and trying to go back in regular. All of your weight is on the pivot point, which is your back heel. So to go back in fakie, you're actually going to make a rolling motion where you transfer all of your weight from your heel to your back toes. When you put pressure onto your toes, it's gonna push the wheel from on top of the coping to back into the ramp. From here, all you're gonna have to do is a small fakie manual to make sure your front wheels make it back in below the coping. And it really does feel like you're doing a fakie manual when you do this. As you start that fakie manual, when you see your wheels are below the coping, let your front truck come back down on the ramp. Shift all of your weight back to the center of your board, bend your knees, and ride away. A few mistakes I see with this trick is if you're not perfectly locked in on that heel and that wheel, you're not gonna be able to come back in because your truck will shift when you go back in. Another thing that I see are sometimes people will not put enough pressure over to their toes, so they try to lean to go back in, and they're still locked in because all of their weight is on their heel. So once you learn how to do this trick, there's a few other tricks you can learn how to do as well. There's like different variations. One is a nollie pivot to fakie. Hey guys, welcome back to another video. It's an early morning in Long Beach, California. You can see we've got a very different looking ramp behind me. The coolest thing about this ramp, it actually has a spine on it. So I'm gonna drink some coffee, warm up, and I'm gonna show you 3 beginner tricks that you can learn on a spine ramp. Okay, so the first trick I'm gonna show you how to do over a spine is a rock over the spine. And a rock over the spine is when you go up, you lift up your front truck, and then you press down on the nose of your board. That way you land almost in a board side position on top of the spine. You're perfectly balanced on it. And then when you go back in, you press down on your front truck, lift up on your back truck, and you ride over the spine. Okay, so when I do this trick, I put my feet right here. I put both of my feet directly over the bolts, and I kind of keep them wide. That way when you go up the ramp, you can lift up, press down, and then lift up to go back over the coping into the other side of the ramp. Here are a few different things not to do when you first start trying this trick. One, you want to make sure you have enough speed. Don't go slow. When you go slow, what can happen is as you go up the ramp, you actually don't have enough speed to go up and over. And so a lot of times you'll sit here, and you actually don't want to sit here in a long time. It's kind of a dangerous place to be. Make sure that you have enough speed so that when you go over, it's in the middle of your board and you can go over the spine ramp. And the second thing I would recommend, do not go too fast and lean on your back truck. What I see a lot is when people first start learning this, they go as fast as they can to get over, and they go right here, which is a little bit safer on this parking block, but on normal coping, you're gonna catch your kingpin, you're gonna get hung up, and you're gonna fall onto the other side. So make sure when you go up, you have adequate amount of speed, and then actually rock. Lift the front truck up, hit, and when you get here, press down so that you rock back into the other side of the ramp. The second trick that is super easy to learn on a spine ramp is a blunt to tail stall. And a blunt to tail stall is when you go up the ramp, you're gonna press all the way down on your tail, lift up on your front truck, land into a blunt, but then you're gonna press forward, move your body weight forward, and you're gonna go into a tail stall on the other side, and then you just drop back in on the spine ramp. So when you do this trick, there's a few different places you can put your feet, but really I think there's only one that makes sense. And for me, I put my front foot directly over the bolts, just like the rock. And then the last one, you're gonna put your back foot on the tail. That way it's easy to put pressure, and you can get into that blunt stall. I have one thing I would recommend not doing when you first start trying this trick, and it's to go too fast or too slow. If you go too fast, one of the things that's gonna happen is you're gonna land maybe too far down, and you're gonna fall and slide out. The other thing I would highly recommend is you also don't wanna go too slow. You wanna have the right speed. If you go too slow, you're gonna end up in a blunt and you're not gonna be able to get over it. So make sure that you have enough speed, and then also lean forward with your body weight so that you go into the tail stall position before you drop in. The third easiest trick to learn on a spine ramp for beginners is the backside feeble stall. And it's when you go up the ramp, you're gonna turn almost 90 degrees backside, lock in your back truck. Your front truck's gonna go up over on the other side of the spine, bend your knees, and you're gonna go back down regular. So when I do a backside feeble over the spine, I put my front foot still directly over the bolts. My back foot goes on the tail, and I'm kind of in this pocket so that I can push it 90 degrees, lock in my back truck, but still have enough control so that I can go back over into the spine ramp down to regular. One of the things that will help you do this is when you go up the ramp, as you approach the ramp, lift up and then put all the pressure on your toes. That way you're able to scoop 90 into the feeble, and as soon as you hit, instead of the pressure being on your toes, you move all of that pressure onto your heel. That way you're able to go back into the ramp. And then when you go back over, when your pressure is here, all you have to do is lift up and you go directly back in regular. One of the things I would recommend not to do is don't turn your shoulders. When you go up the ramp, you want to keep them perpendicular to the coping. That way when you go up and you turn and you go in regular, your shoulders are still set up so that you go back regular. If you turn too much when you go over the ramp, you're actually going to try to go back fakie, which is super sick, but you don't want to do that yet. Learn how to do them regular and then learn how to do them fakie. All right, so those are 3 beginner spine tricks that you can go learn on your local mini ramp or your local skate park. But I also want to teach you a 4th one because it's super fun, a little more advanced, but it's one of my favorite tricks to do on a spine, and it is a layback rock to fakie. A layback rock to fakie is when you go up onto the spine, you get into rock, but you also drop your back hand with your thumb up. You grab the coping, and then as you go back into the other side, you revert backside 180 degrees while only keeping one hand on the coping, and then you roll away fakie. So when I do this trick, when I set up for it, my feet are in a very similar position to the backside feeble stall. My front foot is directly over the bolts, and my back foot is here, kind of in this pocket. That way I know that I can do that backside 180 revert with my hand on the ground because I have a little bit of power to scoot it to do so. I'm gonna show you one thing you should do when you're doing this trick, and that's where to put your hand. When you go up the ramp, you're gonna turn your hand and it's gonna look like this. You wanna make sure your thumb is on one side of the coping and all 4 of your fingers are on the other side. When you grab like this, it actually makes it easier to turn your shoulders, to turn your entire body into 180 backhand fakie on the spine. One of the things I recommend not doing is get into the rock and then put your hand down. You actually wanna do it at the exact same time. So when you go up the ramp, you're actually reaching forward and putting your hand down the same time you land in rock. If you go in board and then you drop down, it's a different motion and you're gonna be falling too far forward to still have balance on your board to go back fakie. So make sure as you go up, hand goes down the same time as the board comes onto the coping. All right guys, there are 3 beginner tricks and 1 super fun intermediate to advanced trick that you can learn on the spine ramp today. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hey guys, welcome back to another video. We are at a mini ramp in Big Bear Lake, California, and today we're gonna learn another mini ramp trick, and it is the layback frontside rock and roll. If you've been subscribed to our channel for a while, you probably noticed I've already done this video. It was the first tutorial that I ever did on our YouTube channel. But we're at a little bit better mini ramp, a lot better backdrop, and we have some better camera equipment. So I want to see if I make that video better. That way you can learn how to do this trick a little bit quicker as well. And if you want to know why we are in Big Bear Lake, California, we are staying at an Airbnb with a mini ramp, and I'm gonna link the card to that video up here. Make sure to go check out the entire Airbnb tour. It may not be up there yet, but as soon as we get that video up, it'll be up here. Make sure to check that out, and link in the description down below if you want to book that video as well. But what is a layback frontside rock and roll? A layback rock and roll is when you go up the ramp frontside, you put down your hand that is behind you on the coping, thumb side up, and you get into a frontside rock and roll position with only your back hand on the coping, and then you turn frontside 180 degrees and ride back down the ramp. It's one of my favorite tricks to do. It definitely feels like you're surfing on the mini ramp. This is probably more of an intermediate style trick, but before you do it, there are 3 other tricks you want to learn how to do first. The first one is to drop in. The second thing you need to learn how to do is a frontside kick turn on the mini ramp. And the third and last thing you need to know how to do is a frontside rock and roll. So when I do this trick, I put my feet right here. My front foot goes directly over the bolts, and my back foot goes right over the tail. The second thing you need to know is where to put your hand. When you go up and you grab the coping, it's gonna look like this. Your thumb's gonna be on top of the deck, and the other 4 fingers are gonna be down below. So to do a frontside layback rock and roll, you're gonna drop in on the opposite quarter. You're gonna bend your knees, and when you get up to the coping, you're gonna reach down and grab the coping with your back hand. Make sure that you have your thumb up and your other 4 fingers below the coping. At the same time, you're gonna put pressure on your back foot and lift up your front truck so that you land in the middle of the coping with your board. When you're locked into the frontside rock and roll position, you're gonna take your head and you're gonna look over your front shoulder. I've said this in a lot of my videos, but wherever your head goes, wherever your eyes go, is where the rest of your body is gonna go as well. So when you do this trick, make sure to look over your front shoulder, and it's gonna help turn your body 180 degrees to go back into the ramp. When you land into that rock and roll position, make sure to press down with your front foot so that you get the rock motion on the deck. As you start to come back into the mini ramp, look over your front shoulder and let your shoulders and hips start turning front side. When you do this, your feet and your board is gonna follow. When you're turning as you pass the 90-degree angle, you'll feel the right time where your momentum should shift, and you're gonna feel that it's the right time to let go of the coping, bend your knees, and ride back down the ramp. If you're having trouble learning this trick, I have 3 tips that I think will help you learn it a lot faster. And the first one is when you're trying it, put both hands down on the coping. When you're doing this trick, the proper way is to only have one hand down, your back hand, but when you first start learning it, if you use 2 hands, it's gonna help you get the motion of the layback rock and roll. The second thing I would recommend is keep your knees bent and stay low. If you're kind of tall like me, when you stretch out on a layback, it's a lot harder to get back into the ramp and keep your feet under you. And then number 3, try just going up the ramp and grabbing the coping to get used to trying laybacks. Laybacks are such a different feeling trick, and if you've never tried grabbing the coping, you need to try something easy like this to get used to getting low and grabbing the coping. Well, hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that video of how to do a layback frontside rock and roll.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. My name is Dylan. On this channel, I teach skateboarding tutorials, product reviews, and all the behind the scenes of our skateboarding nonprofit here in Kansas City. Today, we're gonna learn a brand new mini ramp trick, and it is the layback frontside rock to fakie. Check it out. Fun fact, the first trick tip I ever did on my channel was a layback frontside rock and roll, and I probably should have done one to fakie right after it, but at the time I just didn't know any better, so we're gonna learn that one today. So what is a layback frontside rock to fakie? It's when you're gonna go up the ramp frontside, you're gonna drop your back hand on the coping, reach down, grab the coping, you're gonna do a frontside rock, but before you turn 180 degrees and turn your body back in, you're actually only going to go 90, stop the rotation, and then go back down fakie. So before you learn how to do this trick, there's a few other tricks you wanna learn how to do first. The first one is to make sure you know how to drop in. Second, you wanna make sure you feel comfortable doing a frontside kick turn on the mini ramp. Third, make sure you know how to do a frontside rock and roll, and if you don't, there's a card at the top of the video, teach you how to do it there. And lastly, you wanna make sure you know how to do a layback frontside rock and roll. And if you don't know how to do that one either, there's also a card at the top of this video. Click there, go watch that video, and then come back and learn how to do it to fakie. So 2 placements you wanna know when doing this trick. One is your foot placement, and I put my feet right here. My front foot goes directly over the bolts, and then my back foot is on the tail. You can see I'm a little bit on the inside pocket, on the toe side pocket with my back foot, and that just helps me turn 180 degrees to go back in front side, even though you're gonna go back in fakie. And then the second thing you need to know is where to put your hand. So your back hand is gonna grab the coping, and you're always gonna go thumb side up on the coping. When you grab, 4 fingers are gonna go below, but that thumb is gonna be on the deck when you grab the coping. To do a layback frontside rock and roll to fakie, you're gonna go up the ramp frontside. And as you get close to the top of the ramp, you're gonna drop your back hand on the coping with your thumb side up. So backhand on the coping, your thumb's gonna be on the deck, the other 4 fingers below. And from there, you're gonna go up just like you would a normal layback frontside rock and roll. You're gonna get your front truck up on the deck, make sure that you rock like you would a rock to fakie, but when you go back in, instead of looking over your front shoulder, what you're gonna do is you're actually gonna keep looking straight. So your hips are gonna turn like you're gonna do a 180-degree turn frontside, like you would do a normal layback frontside rock and roll. When you keep your shoulders parallel to the coping, what's gonna happen is your hips are actually gonna shift and you're gonna go back the other way. And so what I would recommend when doing this is to keep your stance really, really wide on your board. And that way when you go back down and you do that 90-degree turn, with your front foot, you can be almost in that curvature where the nose starts, and you can really start to press down there and to turn the other 90 degrees back in. From there, one of the hardest things really is just figuring out how to have enough speed. You don't want to slide all the way down to the bottom of the ramp. You want to make sure that you can do it, do that 90-degree turn real quick, and then back down fakie as quick as possible. The 2 main things you want to think about here is where are your shoulders at, where are your hips at, and then also where are you looking. On a layback frontside rock and roll, you would look over your front shoulder, but for this particular trick, you're really gonna look more down at your hand. So look down at the coping, and that'll keep your shoulders parallel with the coping. As you go back in, you're gonna feel you slide down just a little bit on the ramp, but before you completely stop, make sure that you turn back in with your hips. It's all gonna be in your hips this time, and then your shoulders are going to follow. Bend your knees, let go, and right away. So a couple tricks and tips that'll help you in learning this trick. When you do the actual trick, you just want 1 hand down, and that's gonna be your backhand. If you put 2 hands down, it doesn't really count, it doesn't look good, you're kind of just holding yourself up on the coping. But when you first learn this trick, I would recommend put both hands down. It's gonna be really easy for you to keep your shoulders parallel because both your hands are going to be on the coping. And as you start learning them better and better, you can really start to feel if you have more weight on your front hand or not. So really just try it with both hands down, go to fakie, and then more and more start practicing with 1 hand and maybe just hit your other hand and then just tap your other hand. And before you know it, you won't need your front hand at all. You'll be able to do it all with just the back hand to be able to go up, rock, and then go back down fakie. The other thing I would recommend when you first start trying this, do it on a smaller ramp first. It's gonna be a lot easier on a smaller ramp because there's not as much transition for you to try to turn on. And it's a lot more mellow. So it's easier to go 90-degree and then turn back the other 90-degree fakie on a more mellow ramp. If it was a steep ramp, as soon as you go 90, you're kind of just going all the way to the bottom unless you have that motion and that momentum down really, really well. So try it on a smaller, mellow ramp. Once you learn it well on there, you'll be able to do it on bigger stuff. It's a blast. I don't see a lot of people do it. If you know how to do a layback frontside rock and roll, I promise you'll get this one in the same session. Hey, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial of how to do a layback frontside rock to fakie. It's something that I don't see a lot of people do. A lot of people will just do the layback rock and roll, but this is a trick that when you first start learning it, you can also slide it as well. So go ahead, practice sliding it, going in fakie. You can do it to nose to fakie. Really, the possibilities are endless. Once you start learning how to do that 90-degree turn and then back to fakie, it kind of makes a cool little screech. I'll put a clip here. I did one the other day where it makes this really cool sound when you do it on cement. But yeah, it's just a very unique, fun mini ramp trick that I don't see a lot of people do. Hey guys, welcome back to another video. We are back on the mini ramp because I have another trick I want to teach you. It is the backside disaster sugarcane, one of my favorites. Let's get it. I would consider this more of an intermediate to advanced mini ramp trick, but like I said, it's one of my favorites. And basically what a backside disaster sugarcane is, you're gonna go up the ramp, you're gonna do a backside 180, land in disaster with the coping right in the middle of your board, and before you go in, you're actually gonna push with your toes and you're gonna go into a frontside Smith, but we call it a sugarcane since you're going backside before you roll back into the mini ramp. So before you do this trick, there's 3 other things you wanna learn how to do first, and the first one is a fakie frontside Smith stall. The second thing you want to know how to do is a backside disaster. And if you don't know how to do it, I've got a card at the top of this video. Go back and watch that video and then come back and learn how to do this one. And
And the last thing you want to know how to do is a fakie disaster smith. And just like the previous trick, I've got a card to a trick tip that I've already taught this one. Go learn that one. It's going to make learning this one so much easier. Before you do this trick, you need to know where to put your feet, and I put my feet right here. I put my front foot directly over the front bolts, and my back foot goes on the tail, but my toes are in this pocket so that I can scoop and do a backside 180 to land in that disaster. So to do this trick, you're gonna drop in on the other side, make sure that you have enough speed. You actually wanna have a little bit more speed than you would a backside disaster. And the reason being, you're actually gonna be a little bit more on top of the deck when you get up there so that you can shuffle into a sugarcane. So make sure to drop in, get enough speed, bend your knees, and as you approach the coping, start turning backside with your shoulders first. With your toes over on that tail, you're gonna scoop or pop into the backside disaster. And as soon as you land in it, you wanna make sure that your knees are bent, that your shoulders are square with your knees, your hips, and your toes. And from there, what you're gonna do is you're gonna put more pressure onto the back foot on your toes. And you're gonna scoop almost just like you did into the disaster, like a backside 180. Scoop until you land into the smith position. Like I said, since you're going backside, if you were to do this as a slide into a grind, we call it a sugarcane. So as soon as you scoop and you feel the coping catch on your back truck, you're gonna feel all of your weight go back onto the heel of your board, and that's where you're gonna keep the pressure so that you stay in sugarcane. From there, it's gonna feel a little weird, you're gonna feel twisted up, but going back in is the exact same thing as doing a fakie frontside smith. So don't get too intimidated, don't get too discouraged when you get into it. Just make sure that you bend your knees, look over your front shoulder as you go back in, release the pressure from your heel, and you will ride right back into the ramp. So I have 3 tips I would recommend when you first start trying this trick that I think will help you do this trick a lot quicker. The first one is when you get into backside disaster, really practice scooping in harder than you think that you need to. One of the scariest things doing this is when you do it and you don't lock in, but you think you're locked in and then you go back in and you hang up. I would definitely recommend scoop a lot harder with that back foot and your hips to shift into that frontside smith position. It feels a lot safer when you actually land in the coping and know that you can ride back down the ramp. The second tip that I have for you is to go faster than a backside disaster. If you get all the way up and you're decked on the ramp, it actually gives you a little bit more confidence to get up there and then scoot over into the frontside smith or sugarcane position. So try to go a little bit faster, get all the way on top of the deck, and then try to shift into that frontside smith. And the last thing I would say, if you've never done this before, or it feels weird to go from disaster into that smith, find like a curb or a ledge or something at your skate park that you can set in board slide, even if it's a rail. Just set up on a board slide, try to find a flat rail, set up board slide, and then just practice kicking up into the frontside smith. It feels super weird at first, but if you can do it on a curb, you can do it on a mini ramp. Like I said, this is one of my favorite tricks to do, and once you learn it, there are a ton of other variations. You can do it frontside into smith, you can do so many different variations. So I hope you enjoy this one, learn it, try it on a mini ramp soon. In today's video, I'm going to teach you a not so normal foot plant with a not so normal name. It is called the spaghetti western. It is a super fun trick to do. It looks really, really cool and it feels even better. Let's get it. So what in the world is a spaghetti western? It's a foot plant trick that is similar to a can opener, except you only use your front hand. It's when you approach the ramp fakie, take your back foot off the board, pop the board into your hand, and you're gonna wrap the board around your front foot, almost like a front foot impossible, before grabbing it with your front hand, and you're gonna jump right back in. It may look difficult, but I have some tips and tricks so you can learn it in no time. So before you learn how to do this trick, there's a few other tricks you wanna learn how to do first, and the first one is a fakie disaster. This is gonna help you feel comfortable to go up the ramp fakie and to take your back foot off the board. When you do a fakie disaster, you're gonna pop, your foot's gonna come up, and you land back on the coping, but when you do this, you'll have a better understanding of how to take your foot off and put it on the deck. If you don't know how to do this trick, good news, I've done a trick tip on this already before. You can check it out right up here. I actually think you could check it out right up here. The second trick you wanna know how to do is a frontside sweeper. And the reason you wanna know how to do this, it's gonna give you a better understanding of how to do the foot plant, how to grab the board, and most importantly, how to jump back into the ramp. If you've never done this trick before, I also have a trick tip on that. Make sure to check that out right here. Go watch that video. It'll help you learn how to do this one. And lastly, if you already know how to do a can opener, you're gonna be able to do this trick in seriously probably less than 3 tries. If you don't know, click right here. I'll show you how to do it. Okay, so to do this trick, you need to know where to put your feet, and I put my feet right here. I put my front foot directly over the bolts. I hang off my toe a little bit, and then my back foot is just right here on the tail of the board. Pretty simple, easy place to put it, but this makes it easy so when you go up the ramp, you can take your back foot off, put it onto the deck, grab your board, wrap around your foot, and go back in. And then the next thing you need to know is how to wrap the board around your foot, and it looks like this. So when you come up out of the ramp, you're gonna have this foot on the deck, and your other foot is gonna be down here on the board. But as you come up, as a can opener, I reach down with my back hand. But to make this a spaghetti western, you're gonna reach down with your front hand. So you're gonna grab just like this. As you come up, bonk those wheels, and you're gonna land just like this, grabbing the tail of the board, and to rotate it, when you have your toes hanging off and it's pointed straight and your knees up to you, you'll wrap it and you're gonna catch the nose again with your front hand, and it will look like this. From there, you're in sweeper position, and you're ready to roll. One of the ways you can practice the wrap is just by doing it on flat ground first. So stand on a flat space just like this. You're gonna grab your board with your front hand, grab the tail of your board, your toes are gonna go over the front bolts, and you're gonna practice flipping this board around, wrapping it, and then catching it with your front hand and sweeper, just like that. If you can do it on flat ground, you can do it on the ramp. So another thing that I'd recommend is when you catch the board, when you spin it around, you wanna make sure that when you go to catch it, your hand is flat. If you try to catch it like this, you're gonna end up jamming your fingers, but when it's flat, you have a better opportunity to stop it and grab the nose. So now that you've learned the 3 tricks you need to know before doing this trick, and we've got the basic mechanics of how to do it, let's do this trick. So you're going to approach the ramp fakie with enough speed to land on the deck of the ramp. I would recommend on the quarter pipe opposite of this ramp to do a rock to fakie or to nose stall so that you have enough speed. As you approach the quarter pipe and get to the coping, don't pop your tail or bonk your wheels. Simply step off the board and place your foot solid on the deck of the ramp. When you step on the deck of the ramp, you're gonna try to land with your foot closer to the coping. That way you don't have to jump as far back in after you do the trick. You're not gonna bonk your wheels in a traditional way, but when you do put your back foot on the ramp and you lift that board up, your wheels are gonna bonk off the coping, and that board is gonna shoot straight into your front hand. One of the biggest mistakes I see here is when people catch the board, they do the wrap too quick. They do it too quick and their foot isn't flat. And when you do it too quick and it's not flat, it tries to wrap around the toe. And when that happens, your board starts to flip instead of wrap, and then it goes somewhere else in the park. When the tail of your board lands in your front hand, continue lifting your knee straight up to your chest and keep your front foot flat. This is also why we made sure that our front foot hangs off the toe side a little bit. That will help keep your foot flat as well. As you start the wrap, bring your front hand up and keep it flat to catch the bottom side of the nose of the board. Like I said, you don't want to bend your fingers because you could end up jamming your fingers, and when you keep them flat, there's more surface area for you to catch the nose. You want to catch the nose of the board in the middle of the board or on the heel side of the board. If you catch the nose on the toe side of the board, it's more difficult to keep your shoulders perpendicular to the coping because you start turning almost like a backside 180. As you catch the nose of the board, you're now going to land in a frontside sweeper position. This is where already knowing how to sweeper comes in handy. So keep your front foot on the board, your back foot on the deck, sweep across the deck, and as your back wheels bounce and go up and over the coping, jump back into the ramp and land with your back foot on the tail of the board, bend your knees, and ride away. When doing the spaghetti western, there's a few mistakes you want to try to avoid. Like I said, the first one is wrapping it around your foot too quick. When you go up and you try to wrap super fast, it's never going to be as consistent. A few ways you can combat that is bringing your knee up to your chest, keeping your front foot flat so that there's a flat area for it to wrap around, and then lastly, making sure your hand reaches out and it's flat so you can grab the nose and it is controlled. Another mistake you can make is not leaning back into the ramp so that you can jump into the ramp. If you lean too far back, it's really hard for you to keep your balance, and it's a lot longer distance for you to jump back into the ramp. So when you do it, make sure to drop that front shoulder so you're still leaned into the ramp. So as soon as you grab sweeper, you're not taking any more time, you're jumping straight back into the ramp. And the biggest mistake you can make is after you've done the trick, you land in frontside sweeper, you sweep across the deck, but you don't allow your wheels wheels to get back over the coping. What normally happens when this happens is you hang up and you fall on the way back in. So make sure to take your time as you sweep across the deck, make sure those wheels go up and over the coping, and you're ready to jump back in so that you fully go in to the ramp. This is a super fun trick to do, and once you learn on something small, it's pretty easy to take it to a bigger ramp. So make sure to learn this trick, take it to some bigger ones, and have fun doing them. Hey, well, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope it helped you learn how to do a spaghetti Western. If it did help you learn how to do it and you filmed yourself do it, please comment down below, comment that link down below. I'd love to see when people are learning tricks that I teach here on YouTube. If you like this video, please like it. It really does make a difference. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content just like this. This is the last trick tip of 2023, but we're gonna be learning a lot more skate tricks in 2024. Thank you guys so much. See you in the next year.